Well, I am here in Salem, Oregon. I just got gas, just traveled down here, filled up my tank, got myself some coffee, and I'm gonna try to travel and go across every active ferry crossing in the state of Oregon. Now, there's 4 active ferry crossings. The first ones I'm gonna cross are the ones on the Willamette River. The first one is the Buena Vista Ferry. It's the most southern one, so I'm traveling to that one first, and I'm gonna make my way up north. So I'm gonna cross that one, going east to west. Then I'm going to go up north through Independence, then go across the Wheatland Ferry from west to east. Then I'm going to travel over to Canby and then cross the Canby Ferry from south to north. I'm pretty excited. It's going to be interesting. I've not gone across all these ferries before, at least most of them. I've gone across one of them, and it's a bit of a drive. It's about a 7-hour drive round trip for all 4 ferries that I want to cross today. So I'm going to start heading south, and I'll talk to you when I get to the Buena Vista Ferry.
To give some history on the ferries, we have to go back before Oregon was a state. Beginning around 1840, settlers began coming to Oregon via the Oregon Trail, taking up land claims and establishing communities. With farming growing and an already established fur trade, travel up and down the Willamette River quickly became common, and the river crossings became an obstacle, particularly the Willamette River and the Tualatin River. Many settlers with land claims along the rivers built ferry crossings, and by the mid to late 1800s, there were dozens of confirmed crossings, many of which were just simply makeshift planks on rafts that could crudely carry horse and buggies, while more successful ones would later become larger boats and steamships. There were numerous ferries across the Tualatin River, with the most popular being the Shoals Ferry and Taylor's Ferry, but most of them were short-lived as landowners opted to build bridges. The Willamette River, meanwhile, was much larger than the Tualatin River. Building bridges was much more complicated, making construction costly and pretty much out of reach for early settlers to build. It wasn't until the 1900s, when car traffic became more prominent, that the state began building more bridges. This led to several ferries being shut down, including the Salem Ferry in 1905, the Corvallis Ferry in 1913, and the Butteville Ferry in 1915. The Boone's Ferry was one of the most traveled ferries at the time and was established by Alphonso Boone, who was the grandson of folk hero Daniel Boone. By the 1900s, Boone's Ferry was one of the most used ferries in the state of Oregon because of it being the most direct route from Portland to Salem. Based on the research I can find, once the Selwood Bridge opened in 1925 and the Selwood Ferry closed, all that remained were about 6 ferries. The last major purge of ferries occurred in the 1950s, when the bridges were built to replace the Independence Ferry and the Sauvie Island Ferry. The river's most used ferry, the Boone's Ferry, ceased operations in 1954 when a bridge was built next to it to hold Interstate 5. Since then, there has only been 3 ferries on the Willamette River, the Buena Vista, the Wheatland, and the Canby. All 3 of these ferries are guided by an underwater cable that carries them in a straight line directly across the river from one ferry landing to the other.
Thank you so much, David. In that Bills game, a big incompletion on.
Well, I made it to the Buena Vista Ferry. It's only $3, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Nice view on the river though. It's a great day. Sun's still kind of out. It looks like it fits maybe 6 cars. They have parts of it coned off at the moment, but so it's just me and one other truck. Yeah, first time crossing this ferry. It's kind of fun, kind of interesting. Yeah, well, let's get to the next one, see how the next one's like. All right, so we're here, about to get on the Wheatland Ferry. So far it looks pretty similar to the Buena Vista Ferry, kind of a flat area, definitely a nice landing for a ferry. A little bit more traffic here. Looks like I'm in the middle of 3 cars right now, and there's a couple of cars crossing. It's a little bit busier, less rule, I would say. Yeah, let's see how it goes. So here on the Wheatland Ferry, it's actually in the location of where the first, at least the first that I've looked at, ferry was on the Willamette River here in the Willamette Valley. It was at this location. The Methodists actually used to cross here back in the early 1800s until about the 1850s or so. And at some point in time, this landing right here was used again for a ferry, and it's been operated pretty much since then as the Wheatland Ferry. Similar to the Buena Vista Ferry, it is operated by Marion County. So this one crosses from Yamhill County from Yamhill County into Marion County, or Marion County into Yamhill County. Pretty short ferry, pretty shallow crossing. The river actually flows a little bit in some portions here. Nothing too scenic to see here, just a kind of shallow expanse of the Willamette where it's just right here. So we're gonna dock here in just a second, and then we'll go on to the next ferry. Made a quick little detour, and I'm in St. Paul on my way to the Canby Ferry. I decided, to drive through French Prairie in Oregon. It's actually a really historic area for the state of Oregon. Some of the first settlers that came out to Oregon through the Oregon Trail, and even before that, the French Canadians, settled here out of anywhere in the Willamette Valley because this area had some of the most fertile soil anywhere in the United States. So when the French Canadians came here, back in the 1800s, the land was very fertile because of the way the natives took care of it for hundreds of years prior. And at one point, this was going to be kind of the future state capital of Oregon. Kind of didn't end up working that way. French Prairie is kind of like a more quiet farm, rural community now. But it's still kind of cool to visit it. A lot of history here. Very interesting downtown. Obviously, this area is now known to have the St. Paul Rodeo. But anyways, time to make my way over to the Canby Ferry. Should be there in like 30 minutes, and we'll check that out. Now on the Canby Ferry. This one's a bit louder than the other ones. Definitely seems a bit newer, more recently remodeled. Only fits 6 cars compared to the Wheatland, which only had about 9 cars. This is the ferry I've been on many times before. It's actually one of the more closest ones to the Portland area. I consider it part of the Portland metro area, though technically it's just outside of it. But it's also right next to the city of Canby, so it's closer to more main population. But it's not quite as much used because there's more accessible bridges like the I-205 and I-5 bridges. So just finishing up here, that is the last of the 3 active ferries on the Willamette River. And now we're gonna go to the last one. And I haven't told you about it because it's a lot different from the other ones. So we'll go check that out. I wanna try to get there before it gets dark. Sunset's just before 5. It's, November, so shorter days. And we'll try to get there before sunset and get on that ferry.
So there have been numerous other ferry crossings in Oregon's history over the years. The Columbia River is the most interesting one to me because it is the largest river in the Pacific Northwest, with tributaries that stretch as far as Alberta and Utah. But ferries connecting Oregon to present-day Washington were not as common back then. To put it simple, it was much easier for new landowners in the 19th century to create makeshift ferries on the Willamette River than the larger and expansive Columbia River. The Astoria-Megler Ferry was one of the more notable ones, which for years connected the Oregon coast and the Washington coast together at the mouth of the Columbia River, where the river is 6 miles wide. That ferry service discontinued when the historic Astoria Bridge was built in 1966. The last remaining ferry service on the entire Columbia River is now the Wahkiakum County Ferry, also known as the Westport Ferry or Oscar B. Ferry. It's situated about halfway between the 2 closest bridges, which is in Astoria and Rainier and Longview. Here, the Columbia River splits around Puget Island, with the ferry crossing that connects from Westport, Oregon to State Route 409 in Wahkiakum County, Washington. To get there, I have to drive up into Portland and take US Route 30 for about an hour to Westport. This ferry is different than the other 3 I went to. It's a larger vessel that carries up to roughly a dozen cars, I believe. It isn't guided by an underwater cable. It actually follows the Westport Slough for a ways before turning and going across the Columbia River in more open and deeper waters compared to the Willamette River. The ferry also has 1 scheduled stop per hour, since it is a lot longer to ride than the other ones. So let's hope I can make it to the last stop before sunset so I can get good footage.
Rechargeable hearing aids starting at just $98. Clear, comfortable, and happy customers. And hear the difference today by going to audiohearing.com. That's AUDIEN hearing.com.
So on eBay, because I'm absolutely obsessed.
They have the most talented roster. They got off to a very good start. A lot of it had to do with injuries, but they're come out of the NFC. We just need to get the Ravens back into a legitimate thing. Well, it's shortly for the rest of the AFC. Let's go out and get up there.
Well, I was able to get here before sunset, but unfortunately, it was right in between when it's supposed to meet here. So the next time the ferry will get here will be 5:15, which will be after sunset. So I won't be able to go out and be on the ferry probably when it's light out. I'm in line here and I got another like 20 minutes or so to wait. Just flew my drone around to check out the area, at least get something before it's dark. But yeah, we'll be on in a second, but it's gonna probably be dark out by the time we get there. It's getting cloudy, so you can't even see the sunset. It's a little unfortunate, but it's been a long day. I'm ready to go on this ferry. I'm excited to see how this ferry is. This one is a bit different than the rest of them. This one's an actual boat. There's no underground cable that guides it, and it's a bit longer. It's 12 minutes, and it actually has scheduled stops. So this one you gotta wait a little bit longer, but it should be fine. All right, well, I just crossed the ferry. I'm on the Washington side now, over on Puget Island, and I'm going to drive home. It's going to be a little bit of a drive home, but it's going to be all right. I'm a bit tired. It's a long day, but it was fun. I was able to check out all 4 ferries in the state of Oregon. It was pretty cool. Never checked out 3 of them before, so I did something new, and I hope you guys learned some history about Oregon on the way as well. And now it's time to do it all again backwards this time. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm going to go home and get some dinner and get some sleep. Thanks for watching.